welcome back. And of course, I get a little lost on words on the whole thing surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein files, and this whole thing is kind of interesting. And I have to ask the question, why is this salacious story so important, and why is it continually in the news? Well, our next guest may help us with that. Delighted to have with us Nick Bryant, an investigative journalist who has spent years in his career exposing institutional cover-ups. His best-known book for the Franklin scandal, which was the uncovering of the child trafficking network protected by the state and the federal authorities. In 2012, years before it made headlines, he began investigating the Epstein files and obtained the little black book, supposedly. His latest book, The Truth About Watergate, challenges the official narrative of Watergate scandal and reveals deeper political deception. So it seems like there's a little theme going on here today. Deception in government. Whoa. All right. Nick Bryant. Let's see. nyc.com is his website, and there's the picture of the book. Nick, good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you.
Thanks for your time. Where are you?
I am in the middle of New York City.
Okay. Are you having a good time? All right. A lot to talk about. Why is this Epstein file story, this salacious story, in the news, and why should it be there, and what are we looking for?
Epstein has been with us for a number of years. And the first cover-up with Epstein was in 1996 by the FBI. The FBI was warned about Epstein in 1996. And in 2007, 2008, the government worked out a deal with Epstein that even though the Department of Justice had a list of 40 victims, they worked out a deal with Epstein saying that, and ultimately he had to do 13 months in a county jail, and all his co-conspirators were given blanket immunity.
Okay, so here we are today, and this story is all over the news. Where do you think it's going?
Why has the government covered up child trafficking since 1996? That is the question. Why is our government covering up child trafficking, which is the most heinous of crimes? According to the Centers for Disease Control, 25% of underage girls have been molested and 5% of underage boys. And many people in the field think it's slightly conservative for girls and extremely conservative for boys. But if you just go with those numbers, you've got over 50 million Americans that have been molested when they were underage. So this is a pandemic in our society. And if we don't straighten this out, there's going to be millions of people, victims, that think that they're never going to get justice, that there's no hope for justice. But the bottom line also is not only the victims, but we have to find out why our government is covering up child trafficking, because it shows just how pathological our government has become.
Okay, so to that point, you know, if they covered it up before and now they're trying to cover it up again, it only leads to one possible question, and that was who in government is caught in the net, so to speak.
Well, the original federal cover-up, if you exclude 1996, was in 2008 when George Bush was, the second Bush was the president. And Obama didn't tinker around with that deal. Biden didn't tinker around with it. And Trump didn't tinker around with it his first time around. But he made a campaign pledge that promised transparency with Epstein. I've been writing about this area for quite some time. I've written a couple of books about intelligence-centered blackmail. The Franklin scandal, in many ways, Epstein is a carbon copy of the Franklin scandal. And I also wrote a book called Compromised, The Politics of Sex, Lies, and Blackmail, from the perspective of someone who ran an gay escort service in Washington, D.C., and CIA assets would use his escorts to compromise various closeted politicians and power brokers. So I think what we're dealing with is a political system that's very rife with blackmail.
Okay, so in the meantime, some people are calling for full disclosure. Alan Dershowitz calling for it, the president's calling for it, and yet the DOJ is continuing its redacting. I mean, line after line after line. So something just doesn't pass the smell test here, and yet they're trying, now they're doing committee hearings on this thing. I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out why this story and this man and his activities deserves some kind of a cover-up when everybody's trying to get it out in the open.
I think it shows how perfidious our government is, unfortunately. With Jeffrey Epstein, he was a child trafficker, he was a blackmailer, he laundered money, he took part in arms deals with Israel. All this is documented. So, using a football metaphor, because the Super Bowl is coming up, if I was Team Evil and I had a first-round draft choice, it would be Jeffrey Epstein. He might be the first pick overall if I was Team Evil.
Okay. Do you believe he hung himself in jail?
I try not to speculate about that. I mean, there was a lot of anomalies that night. The guards were asleep. The video was down. His cellmate had been taken out. What Dan Bongino supplied us to prove that he didn't commit himself was extremely flawed. But for me, I focus on justice. I want justice for the Epstein victims. Those emails and documents that have come out show that there were hundreds of Epstein victims that need justice. And I started an organization called Epstein Justice. Your audience, go to epsteinjustice.com. And what we want is very simple. We want an independent congressional commission to investigate this. And an independent congressional commission does not require the permission of or the signature of a president. It needs a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate. And this type of independent congressional commissions often hire non-government personnel to look into whatever issue they're investigating. And we would need that. And so Epstein Justice, we want an independent congressional commission, and we want two questions, or there's two issues that we want to address. Why did the government cover up child trafficking? And we want the perpetrators to be prosecuted. It's pretty baseline morality.
I totally get that. Let me take a break here and come back because I have some follow-up questions. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out Nick's website, nickbryantnyc.com. There's a picture of the landing page and his latest book called The Truth About Watergate. We'll talk briefly about that. You can check that out. And there's a picture of the cover on the screen there. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Honored to have back with us today Nick Bryant, investigative journalist. We're talking about the Epstein files. There's so much in the news these days, so much going on, and I think he has made a great case here that we're just not hearing the whole story. And Nick, given what you previously said about sex trafficking in America, I mean, it's a big topic. People are being arrested by the dozens. I mean, part of ICE operation is picking up a lot of these people, but what seems to be The United States domestic chief sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein, even though he's dead, his case seems to just constantly get buried. I'm trying to figure out, are they trying to use statute of limitations so this doesn't come forward? What's the deal?
Actually, there isn't a federal statute of limitations on child trafficking. With this case, we have to go back to what I said earlier. Why is the government covering up child trafficking? And I think it's a relatively straightforward answer. Many of our politicians are compromised. There was a Tennessee congressman, his name is Tim Burchett, he's a sitting congressman. A couple of years ago, he came out and said, my colleagues are being compromised in honey traps. And honey traps are as old as politics itself. So I think what we have is a political system that's rife with compromise and blackmail. And Americans know that something is wrong with their government. And we keep on hoping Democrats or Republicans are going to fix it. But what we have to do is clean out the blackmail.
Is that the essence of this case, then? There's so many big names involved that the blackmail obviously is what kept it alive to this point. But now that he's dead, it's with the DOJ, it's before Congress. You've had big names now really get damaged with this. Prince Andrew, Bill Gates was the two biggest ones in the news the last couple of days. Before that, of course, Bill Clinton's been around for a long time. And the list goes on and on and on. I mean, sooner or later, this is going to come out, don't you think?
I hope so. The Department of Justice, in their latest tranche, released 3 million documents, which are pretty horrific. Some of them are very horrific. But there's another 3 million documents that need to be released under the Epstein Transparency Act, which is a law. I can give you a rundown of some of the emails.
Go ahead.
They go from very strange to outright evil. And I should point out that much of this information has yet to be corroborated. That's why Epstein Justice and an independent congressional commission is so important. But one of the emails talks about black market babies. One of them talks about 14 and 15-year-olds. Another email talks about Epstein describing his quote-unquote aquarium of girls. And he says some are like shrimp. You throw away the head and keep the body. And one of them actually addresses, and I want to say that these emails have not been corroborated. One of them actually addresses Epstein and Maxwell murdering 2 kids. One of them talks about genetic editing of babies. And actually, there's a famous biologist named Robin Schreiber. And he and Epstein are in contact, and he's doing very strange things to children as far as gene editing. And there's even talk of cloning. So when we get into this, we're getting into the heart of darkness that is at the center of our government.
I have to ask the question, how do you get access to those emails?
Those emails were released last week, 3 million of them. And a number of us are just digging through them.
So we should be hearing more about what you're talking about here shortly as it begins to surface. What about Maxwell? Why haven't they been able to get her to talk?
I believe, and some of these emails show that Epstein was an intelligence asset. He was an intelligence asset for the U.S. He was an intelligence asset for Israel. I wrote a book, you talked about it, the Franklin scandal. And that network had 2 pedophilic pimps, like the Epstein network, 2 primary pedophilic pimps. One of them was a big shot. He had a mansion in D.C. that was wired for audiovisual blackmail. He was a CIA asset, and he was incapable of keeping his mouth shut. He was used to the high life. He wouldn't have worked. Federal prison wouldn't have worked out for him, and he committed suicide. And I believe that there was a deal made. Either he commits suicide or someone would help him commit suicide. And I think Maxwell was given the same deal. If you keep your mouth shut, we'll let you out and you'll be taken care of. The other pedophilic pimp in the Franklin scandal, he did like 12 years for financial crimes. And then he was released, and he had a no-show job waiting for him at a BMW dealership in Alexandria, Virginia. So I think the same deal was made with Ghislaine Maxwell. Keep your mouth shut. You're going to have to do some time, but you'll be taken care of. And I'm sure that Epstein left a bunch of his henchwomen lots of money clandestinely.
So, in addition to the sex trafficking, which in itself is bad and dark, as you just pointed out, do you think there is truth to the fact that he literally was working for the State Department?
As I said, I think that he was working for intelligence. You can go to the blog at EpsteinJustice.com, and I've written a couple of articles about Epstein working with the Israelis, putting together arms deals. And I'm currently finishing an article about Epstein and the CIA. So there's numerous connections. So I think that this is intelligence. And there are good people in the CIA. I believe that. But there's a very dark, malignant corner of the CIA that does very dark, malignant stuff.
So in the meantime, this story is now before Congress in hearings. Looks like the Clintons have agreed to talk, maybe in a limited basis. There's rumors now they'll be calling in some more high-profile people. So that seems to be the beginning of the uncovering of this, maybe with the shadow of statute of limitations over the top of some of it. Are you any way confident that we may get to the bottom of it?
The only way that we're going to get to the bottom of this is people joining Epstein Justice. We've got Facebook groups by state, and people have to put pressure on their respective federal legislators for an independent congressional commission that incorporates non-government personnel. That's the only way we're going to get justice. If this just stays in the political system, this is the same political system that covered it up. So we have to bounce it outside the political system into an independent congressional commission. That's the only way we're going to get the truth.
Why hasn't there been more, maybe a coalition of the victims coming forward?
Actually, there has been a coalition of the victims coming forward, and they've been very powerful. I think they played an integral role in the last tranche of Epstein documents being released. They've had 2 press conferences. A number of the victims have had 2 press conferences in Washington, D.C.
Are they being threatened?
I know that many of them are frightened. The government initially claimed that there were 1,000 victims. Now I think they're claiming that there might be 1,200 victims. And there was the Epstein Victims Compensation Program that victims could get settlements from. And although we've got hundreds of victims, only 225 victims came forward. And 150 settlements were awarded. And I think 8 declined the settlements because if you got a settlement from the Epstein Victims Compensation Program, you had to sign a release that you could not sue any of your perpetrators. It was a superlative cover-up to it.
Okay, wow. Are you confident that Well, it's just hard for me to fathom what's gone on here and why it's still going. But I guess the question is, do you know if the DOJ has legal authority to do the amount of redacting that they've done?
Under the law, under the Epstein Victims Transparency Act, what they're doing is illegal. They're withholding 3 million documents, which is illegal, and they're redacting documents that shouldn't be redacted, which is also illegal. So the Justice Department is showing direct contempt for a law passed by Congress and signed by President Trump.
So how do we remedy that one?
As I said earlier, we're going to need an independent congressional commission. We have enough information to get indictments right now. We know who a lot of the perpetrators are. We know who a lot of the procurers are. And actually, there's an email where one of the main procurers wanted to make a deal with the federal government because she was worried that she might be caught in a dragnet. So what we could do is basically indict the perpetrators on multiple counts of child trafficking, which has no statute of limitations in the federal system. And it's a heavy sentence. It's 15 to life. And then they would roll over on the perp. And we have lots of witnesses.
All right. One quick question. I'm almost done here. So the 3 million documents that have been released so far, are there notable names in there?
Yes. Yes. I mean, Epstein's name is all over, but a lot of the names are redacted. I mean, one of the documents talks about Jeff Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel having dinner together. And we hadn't really thought that there was any kind of friendship there. Elon Musk has said that that Trump is actually in the Epstein files, but he never went to the island. But that's kind of counter to what he wrote in the emails.
Okay. I'm out of time. Thank you, Nick. Let me sort of review.
Okay.
Check out Nick's website, Nick Bryant, nyc.com. There's a picture of the landing page, and stay connected with him. Thanks for your time. Fascinating. Let's see how this unfolds. It's a mess. Thank you, friend.
Okay. Take care. Have a good day.
You too.